Hello, my name is Steve. Welcome to SA. Early one morning, a passerby stopped at a construction site, and he accidentally found something burning not far away. Curious, he walked over and took a closer look. Unexpectedly, it was a woman who appeared in front of him, and he was so frightened that he quickly reported the incident to the police. Who is responsible for this case? Can the police find the real killer? Next, I will tell you the story. The story takes place in Shizuoka Prefecture. It is located between Tokyo and Osaka, Japan, where there are rich hot spring resources, known as the Hot Spring Peninsula. To the east of Shizuoka there is a place called Mishima City, which is located in the central and northern end of the Izu Peninsula. The most famous Mount Fuji in Japan is in Shizuoka. It has beautiful scenery and is rich in mustard, and about 110,000 people live here. The protagonist of the story is named Sachiko Yamane, who was born in Mishima in 1982. Her family is harmonious. Her father works in a transportation company and is usually busy with work. Sachiko is an introverted person, and she has not many friends since she was a child, but she has never argued with anyone or anything unpleasant happened. After graduating from high school, Sachiko entered the university for further studies. To make herself financially independent, Sachiko works part-time at an izakaya near Mishima Station in her spare time. One night Sachiko came home from get-off work at the izakaya as usual. However, she would never have thought that a pair of evil claws were quietly reaching out to her. Who did she meet? What misfortune happened to her? Next we push the time back to January 22, 2002. January 22, 2002, is a Tuesday. That night Sachiko was working part-time at the izakaya as usual. At this time, the cold wind was blowing outside the house. Many people had already gone home early to escape the cold, and there were only a few customers in the store. At 10:50 p.m., the owner told Sachiko to leave work early because there was no one in the store. Sachiko said goodbye to her boss after finishing the finishing touches at hand. She got on her bike and headed south, heading home. Let's look at the map. Sachiko's home is at this location, which is in the Yumaname area of Mishima. The izakaya is located at this location. It is located to the north of Sachiko's house. The two places are 3.9 kilometers apart, and it takes about 15 minutes by bicycle. Sachiko rode south on National Highway 136 after get off work from the izakaya as usual. However, she hadn't arrived home. The time came to 2:35 in the morning. The pungent smell of the bitter evening wind permeates Kawaharagia. The road here is under construction and it is difficult to drive through, and people who know the situation have detoured, so there are almost no vehicles passing by at night. A truck driver was driving on a nearby road. The driver unaware that construction was taking place, and he was the only person in the entire valley. At this time, the truck driver suddenly saw a blazing flame not far away. Although the flames are not big, it would be bad if any trees were burned. The truck driver thought it was very strange, what was burning in the middle of the night. Out of curiosity, he parked the car on the side of the road, got out of the car and slowly walked towards the pile of flames. There was a pungent smell in the air at this time. When he walked to the flame and looked, he didn't expect that there was a person inside, so he took a few steps back in fright. He then quickly called 110 for the police. Mishima police arrived at the scene after receiving a call from the truck driver and cordoned off the scene. The survey work has officially started. As the flames were extinguished, a girl in her 20s, 155 to 160 centimeters tall, with brown hair and tape remaining on her body, was carbonized and died. Clearly, this was a case of intentional homicide. The place where the girl was found was on the construction site of Route 31 in Kawajan Valley, Mishima City. There are no homes nearby, and there is a golf course not far to the south, but few people come here at night. The road is under construction recently, and many people choose to detour, and fewer cars pass by at night. Investigators surveyed the area where the girl was found. They found a tire dent on the ground, in addition to a brown hooded jumper not far away, with duct tape at the cuffs. However, the searchers did not find a container of combustible material or a device used for ignition, nor did they find the victim's mobile phone and other belongings. The police preliminarily inferred that the victim may have been brought here from somewhere else and set on fire. The tools used to commit the crime may have been taken away. Afterwards, the forensic doctor examined the girl and found kerosene on her body, and her body had been violated. The forensic doctor also extracted a man's DNA from her, but there was no match for this DNA data in the database. The kerosene components found at the scene analyzed by the laboratory and extracted from the girl's body are sold at 2 outlets in Mishima. Due to the large number of people buying every day, the police are temporarily unable to start. The first thing the police have to do now is to determine the identity of the victim. The following afternoon someone called the police saying his daughter had not been home the night before and could not be reached on the phone. He contacted all of his daughter's classmates and friends, and no one said he had seen her, so she hoped the police could help. According to the police report, his daughter's characteristics are very similar to the murdered woman found by the police in the early morning. So investigators went to his home to extract the fingerprints left by his daughter on some daily necessities. The laboratory comparison confirmed that the missing person was the girl who was killed in the early hours of yesterday. The victim was Sachiko Yamane, a 19-year-old female college student. Sachiko's parents told police that their daughter would be home around 11:30 after her evening part-time job. Sachiko has a bike with stickers on the frame, the most obvious feature. She rides that bike home every day. Let's look at the map. Sachiko's home is at this location. Izakaya is at this location. The two locations are 3.9 kilometers apart and can be reached by bicycle in about 15 minutes. Sachiko is found at this location, 3.3 kilometers northeast of the izakaya. It's strange that Sachiko's house is south of the izakaya. How could she suddenly appear in the northeast? Since Sachiko's bicycle was not found at the scene, the police speculated that the suspect may have brought her here. The police then went to the liquor store where Sachiko worked to find out what happened. According to the owner of the izakaya, due to the cold weather that day, there were no customers in the restaurant at night, so he asked Sachiko to leave work early. She left the store at 10:50 p.m. At the same time, the police are investigating Sachiko's family and friends to find out if she has had a conflict with anyone recently. It is understood that Sachiko does not have many friends, and she has never had a conflict with anyone. Although she is very introverted and does not like to talk much, everyone has a good impression of her and thinks that she is a very sincere person. Then, investigators checked Sachiko's last call records, and all contacts with her were her family members and friends, and no strange suspicious calls were found. Since she has no enemies, who would treat her with such cruel means? The possibility of a random crime is the greatest, which undoubtedly increases the difficulty for the police to solve the case. The police then turned the focus of their investigation to residents near the izakaya. Maybe Sachiko was targeted by some wicked resident on her way home from the izakaya, and finally committed a crime. 2 days after the incident, the police learned that there had been several incidents of harassment of girl near the izakaya. However, the man just asked for contact information, and no more serious crimes occurred by molesting and seducing the girl. It was impossible to determine whether those events were related to the Sachiko case, so this thread also failed to advance. The time has come to July 2002, which is 6 months after the case, and the case is still under investigation. The bike Sachiko rode that night has not been found, and what happened that night remains a mystery. The police investigation has been slow due to lack of further leads. The case has been widely reported by the local media, and the local residents are also panicking. Everyone hopes that the police can solve the case as soon as possible. The local police are under enormous psychological pressure. They started looking for people who liked to go out at night, were familiar with the surrounding geography and had a bad track record. This measure really made a major breakthrough in the case. A man entered the police investigation area. This person's name is Junya Hattori, born in 1972 in Kamikawa Town, Hokkaido. He is the third of 4 children in the family. He has been stealing since he was a child, for which his father has been criticizing and educating him. But he never changed, so his relationship with his father has not been very good. Junya was also sent to a juvenile training school for theft, and he was in the 3rd grade of middle school, which specializes in educating minors who have committed crimes. Later Junya came to work in Mishima City, Shizuoka Prefecture. He married at the age of 20 and had 2 children, before serving more than 4 years in prison for the crime. Since October 2001, 3 months before the crime, Junya had been working as a worker at a construction company in Mishima. Junya was arrested by the police for a hit-and-run accident 6 days after the Sachiko case. In early July 2002, the police in charge of the Sachiko case were investigating suspicious persons on a large scale. Junya Hattori likes to go out at night, he is very familiar with the Mishima terrain, and he is a repeat offender, so he is suspected by the police. Junya Hattori, who is serving a sentence, was saliva extracted. The crime lab compared the DNA extracted from his saliva to that of a stranger found on Sachiko Yamane. So far, the case has ushered in a major breakthrough, and the police immediately went to the prison to interrogate Junya Hattori, who was serving his sentence. Junya said that he met Sachiko at a convenience store on the night of the crime, and they had sex with Sachiko's consent, and the two have no contact since then. He steadfastly denies the manslaughter charge brought by the police. But Junya Hattori changed his tune the next day, saying that a foreigner had committed the crime with him that night. The foreigner was afraid that he would be reported by her after he violated Sachiko, so he ruthlessly killed her. They then threw Sachiko's bicycle into the river under the Minato Bridge and destroyed Sachiko's belongings. According to Junya Hattori's description, the police found Sachiko's bicycle in the 1.6-meter deep river. The police investigated several convenience stores, but did not find the surveillance video of Junya Hattori and Sachiko that night. There were no reports of them being sighted and no so-called foreigners appeared. It all looks like a lie Junya Hattori concocted to cover up his crimes. All that has to be done now is to find out more evidence to convict him. Police believe there may be some clues in Junya Hattori's car, so police conducted an investigation into his vehicle. Junya Hattori's car is a 1990 Subaru black station wagon. Junya Hattori was involved in another traffic accident 2 days after the Sachiko case, and he subsequently hit and run. To cover up his crime, he sent the car to a junkyard to be disassembled. Now, 6 months later, there is great uncertainty as to whether the fragments of the car can still be found. After tireless efforts, the police managed to find the tires of the car. After comparing the tires with tire tracks left at the scene, they match. Police also found some tape and kerosene cans at Junya Hattori's home. Technicians analyzed the cut edges of the tape and confirmed it was the same type of tape found at the site. They also found that the composition of the kerosene tank was consistent with the composition of the kerosene on Sachiko. The prosecution charged Junya Hattori with manslaughter after obtaining sufficient evidence. Junya Hattori finally gave up resistance in the face of evidence, and he admitted what he had done. On the evening of January 22, 2002, Junya Hattori and colleagues were drinking at a bar in Mishima, and they left at 10:40 p.m. Junya Hattori drove a colleague home in his black Subaru, and then he drove home alone. On the way, Junya suddenly remembered that he forgot his lunch box in the bar, so he drove south along National Highway 136 to retrieve the lunchbox. Junya was driving around 11 p.m. and he spotted Sachiko on the side of the road heading in the same direction. The two of them didn't know each other, but Junya thought she was very cute, so he had a bad idea. Junya Hattori rolled down the car window and tried to strike up a conversation with Sachiko, but Sachiko ignored him. It was cold and late, and there was hardly anyone else on the way. Junya Hattori had just finished drinking, and under the influence of alcohol, he pulled the car in front of Sachiko and blocked her way. He grabbed the bike's basket and asked Sachiko about her name, age, and more. Sachiko was so frightened that she abandoned her bike and tried to escape. But Junya didn't give up. He locked Sachiko in the back seat and put her bike in the trunk. He then took Sachiko to the Karuizawa area surrounded by fields and sexually assaulted her. Since Junya was seen by Sachiko, he was afraid that the girl would call the police, so he decided to find a place to kill the girl. At 2 a.m., Junya went home to pick up some tools and drove to the construction site of Kawaharagiya in Mishima. After the fire spread, he got into his car and fled the scene quickly. The next morning, Junya Hattori went to work at the construction company as usual. After get off work, he disposed of Sachiko's bicycle, mobile phone, wallet and other personal belongings and continued to live as if nothing had happened. On the fourth night of the crime, Junya was driving down the road. Suddenly, he accidentally hit a car that was trying to make a U-turn, injuring two men and a woman on the other side of the car. Junya Hattori then hit and ran. During the 2 days he escaped, he evaded police and sent the car to a junkyard for disassembly. After another day, Junya realizes that he has nowhere to run and will be caught sooner or later. Now that the car has been dealt with by him, the problem from the traffic accident are not serious, and the most important thing is that the police won't find out what happened to Sachiko related to him. Therefore, he went to the Mishima City police station and surrendered after careful consideration. He was eventually sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison. On November 12, 2002, more than 10 months after the Sachiko case, the case officially opened for trial. Junya Hattori admitted his guilt in the face of favorable evidence. But in the sentencing process, the prosecution and the defense launched a heated debate. Defense lawyers said that Junya Hattori took some drugs before committing the crime, which caused him to become confused, indicating that he was not very subjective when he committed the crime. Junya Hattori also said in his final opinion statement, "I'm really sorry for disturbing so many people." He apologized for his crimes in order to avoid the death penalty. After more than a year of trial in the case, the court finally made a verdict on January 15, 2004. Defendant Junya Hattori was convicted of intentional homicide and sentenced to life imprisonment. Although Junya Hattori has been stealing since childhood, it is difficult to correct even with education. But he had never been guilty of intentional homicide before, and at least he still has some humanity, and it was reasonable for him to spend the rest of his life in prison with deep introspection. After the verdict came out, the prosecution believed that the sentence was too light, while the defense believed that the sentence was too severe. In the end, both parties appealed to the court on the grounds that the sentencing was inappropriate. In March 2005, the case was heard again in the Tokyo High Court. The trial judge rejected Junya Hattori's claim of factual error. He believes the boy who grew up in the same household as Junya Hattori has no criminal record. Much of Junya's criminal behavior stems from the way he lives and thinks, rather than his family and upbringing. In addition, Junya Hattori's hesitation in committing the crime is not out of sympathy, but because he is afraid of taking on heavier crimes. Such an idea is dehumanizing, and the harm to society is enormous. The victim Sachiko was a sincere and kind girl, but unfortunately fell into the hands of Junya Hattori, the devil. Junya Hattori appeared to regret his actions, but the Tokyo High Court issued a final verdict considering his tactics. The defendant, Junya Hattori, was convicted of intentional homicide and sentenced to death. In the following years, Junya Hattori appealed several times but was dismissed by the court. Finally, in August 2012, Junya Hattori was executed, ending his sinful life.